Alrighty, thank you for joining us. My name is Jeff Weaver, and I am the digital media editor for the Lancerfeed. Today, I'm joined by Principal Karen Calcaterra, Rockwood Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Support Services, Shelley Willott, and Lafayette Music Department Chair, Brad Baylog. Thank you all for joining me today. Today, we will be discussing Rockwood's alternative learning plan, which students and teachers have been using to stay connected since March 26th. This past week, teachers have held virtual classes on Zoom and collected assignments on Canvas and Google Classroom. We've also seen teachers incorporate humor into their teaching, whether that's been Mr. Dernbeck's snake or Mr. Schneider's mustache. So my first question about the ALP is for Dr. Willott. The first positive case of COVID-19 in Missouri was reported on March 7th. On March 11th, Seattle Public Schools was the first major school system to announce they would close due to the coronavirus. At what point did you consider Rockwood schools would end up closing? And when did initial work on the alternative learning plan begin?
So that has all been decisions made by school superintendents in the area as to when we're closing. The state of Missouri is an local education agency state where they let individual districts decide that. So the superintendents within St. Louis County and St. Louis City have decided to band together and make those decisions together. So they're meeting pretty frequently to decide if there will be extensions or whatever that might be. We started talking about the alternative learning plan the week before spring break on a Friday when I had my one-on-one with Dr. Miles, and he posed the question to me, what if this really comes to fruition? How are we going to handle this? And I said, oh, it's fine. We've got it. We'll figure it out. And went back to my office and went, oh, we better get moving. And I watched the news pretty frequently, so I could kind of see that it was coming. So we had talked about some things in our department, but we really just kind of jumped into place. We've got about 40 people total in the Learning and Support Services department who kind of jumped in and took on different roles and started talking about what we needed to do. And then we incorporated the technology department with us as we started planning.
All right, so what major points did you consider when putting this plan together? What were kind of the key aspects that you wanted to incorporate to make this work?
Well, we wanted to make sure that, first of all, it kept us connected to our students. That's really what's most important to us, is that this situation puts us in a really odd spot that it's more challenging to keep up with kids and what's going on. The other thing was that we wanted to make sure that there was some normalcy and continuing learning and that routine of regularly getting new material, but not to the point that it stresses teachers or our students out. And then another important factor that we had to build in was we don't know where this is going to go. And so it had to be flexible enough that if families are unfortunately struck with illness or dealing with other family members that are ill or with the other stresses that this has caused in families' lives, that it's flexible enough that they can deal with those things without having the other added stress of not catching up on schoolwork.
Gotcha. So Dr. Calcaterra, on March 23rd, you held that Zoom meeting with department chairs to discuss the ALP and how it's going to work. What were some of the key points you emphasized to those department chairs who then carried out that information to teachers?
Well, we reiterated the message that we received from the Rockwood School District as a whole, that it was most important for us to stay connected to our students and, like Dr. Willott said, to provide some of that normalcy to kids during a time that is new for all of us. And so we really spent some quality time talking about the opportunities that we wanted to present to our students. We shared best practices and creative ideas about how we can stay connected to kids, how we can check in with kids, and just really dug into what supports that we could think of and provide during this time. Our department leaders at Lafayette are made up of a group of just amazing teachers and counselors and leaders. And it was a great meeting for us. And that was kind of at the beginning of our journey to band together to say, we got this. And, we are going to support the mission that the district put forward, which is keep kids connected to class and each other. And let's dig in on those relationships that we have that will hopefully carry us through. After that meeting, it was really interesting. I had heard from a couple people, Mr. Baylog included, who's on this call, but I'd heard from quite a few people that it was just nice to even be back in that format as a leadership team. And, during such uncertain times, like we knew that that felt good for us, and we're the adults. And I think that that's what we wanted to be able to present to our kids.
So for you, Mr. Baylog, I can only imagine that playing music as a class in a classroom is much easier than trying to do so on Zoom or online. What challenges have you guys faced in that regard, and how have you been able to deal with that?
It is true. It's very challenging from a music perspective, and I would say that there's other areas of, I mean, I think all of our teachers are finding a lot of challenges in trying to deliver their curriculum in one form or the other. Some of the classes like us, like our tech classes, our art classes, FACS, PE, are probably finding that challenge maybe a little different than some of our other classes. For us, we're lucky that the district already had some things in place for us where they pay for subscriptions for our students at the middle school and high school level for things like Smart Music, Sight Reading Factory, things like that, where we are able to build in lessons with them on a one-on-one basis for individual performance levels. So our goal, at least in the Lafayette Music Department, and I also work at Rockwood Valley, our goal with our kids has been just keep them playing, keep them performing, keep them on their instruments, keep them singing, and keep letting them explore and have fun in music. The ensemble portion of what we do is just, it's impossible to replicate long distance. I know Miss Schaefer tried last week to have the choir sing to epic failure. Just the different delays that people have on internet speeds and all of that happen, it's not possible to do. So we're working more on a one-on-one level. Most of us are doing Zoom meetings with our classes once a week, but such a big part of what our groups are in music is the community of what we build together. And while we've done some stuff on those Zoom calls that are instructive in nature, we've also just been together and hanging out and checking in on one another. Because I'll tell you, as an educator, the biggest thing I miss is that one-on-one with all of the kids in the building and with my colleagues. We try and replicate it as much as we can. It's just not the same. And as a musician and a teacher of fine arts, I miss the creative aspect of what we do with our kids every day. That's kind of a hole in my heart right now that is just not fillable. So if we can keep them playing and give them feedback through Smart Music, one of the programs that Rockwood does, it evaluates the kids and they're playing right away. So if they play right notes, it makes them green. If they're wrong notes, they're red. It shows them the wrong ones. It shows them wrong rhythms. And then what we do is we go back and they get that instant feedback, and then we go back and listen and give them more feedback on how they can improve their playing. And it's really all about feedback at this point with our kids one-on-one.
Gotcha. So Dr. Calcaterra and Dr. Willett, you can add in as well. Rockwood's AOP webpage states that students in grades 6 to 12 should have an average of 90 minutes of work a week for each class they take. And this 90-minute recommendation is less than half the time students spend in class in a typical week. How have teachers been instructed to cut down on the workload and limit which assignments they are giving students?
So basically, we've asked teachers to go to their essential course outcomes and really think through what is going to be essential for kids to have, especially the next year that they have to build on, and really focus on those things and just cut out anything else that doesn't seem essential. That's a hard task. And I think the one fortunate thing for us is that we didn't start this until fourth quarter. We lose several weeks in fourth quarter anyway because of testing and all the activities that go on at the end of the year. So if there had to be a quarter that this had to happen in, fourth quarter is probably the best quarter. It's still challenging though, because we are introducing new material during fourth quarter in many cases. So just trying to find that balance of what's really, truly essential, and having those conversations has been really interesting. Because there's a lot of debate on that across the district in various content areas.
And Jack, I think the other thing that's been helpful is our teachers are already in leadership groups in PLCs and their professional learning communities, and those are really strong. And those staff members are very thoughtful, and they really understand the essential pieces of curriculum. And I think that together they were able to meet and determine, hey, let's take one like subject area at a time, and let's really think about what is it that kids absolutely need to get out of this subject area and strand. And so I would say that that's probably been another piece that has been critical during this is that the professional learning communities that our teachers participate in to make those decisions together.
I think that's what a lot of people don't recognize, is that the work in the background that you don't see. And the teachers have been spending more time planning, more time prepping, because basically their whole world was turned upside down, and they had, just like our students' world has been turned upside down, and they really had to rethink how they were going to do all of this planning that they had already done.
Well, Jack, I can say from a music perspective, not only are we trying to keep all of our musicians moving forward with their level of performance on an individual level and their development that they need, but we're holding on to the hope that we could maybe get a performance in before the year is over. And so part of the things that we're having them give back to us are practicing segments of the music that they've been working on, whether that's Mrs. Bolton getting ready, trying to get a guitar festival in, or the orchestra, band, and choir concerts. We're trying to perform on an individual level. So in the case that maybe we get back with a couple weeks left, we might be able to put something together and give the kids that end of the year performance as well. So we're kind of juggling multiple things with what we're trying to accomplish with our kids.
Gotcha. So Dr. Willett, I know that you guys are currently discussing the idea of grades and how that's going to come into play with this ALP. What would be the benefits and potential drawbacks of having the assignments that are given through this plan not alter students' grades?
So it's funny you should ask that question. That's just the meeting that I got off on and why I was a little bit late here. We have made some decisions regarding grading. That's going to come out tomorrow. And I will say that it will be to the benefit of our students. And that really was the focus of our conversation, is that we don't want anybody to be penalized in any way, shape, or form for what is going on. So I think that when all those details come out tomorrow, that people will be pleasantly surprised that we've worked out a pretty decent plan that will make sure that kids aren't penalized for anything that might happen.
Gotcha.
And Jack, I would like to echo what Dr. Willott said, and this is kind of along that same lines, is I think it's important to know how much work has gone in behind the scenes on making really thoughtful decisions, not only for kids, but the adults involved as well. I was fortunate enough to be a part of some of the planning committees and discussions about how we're going to move forward. And I think it's important for not only our kids of Lafayette, but even the Rockwood community to know the level of care and concern and thoughtfulness that went into really taking good care of each other and making sure that our kids are okay, that our families are okay, and that our staff members are okay. Because, you know, Dr. Willott mentioned this early in the interview, we don't know where this is going, and each day is a learning experience. I know for myself, I wake up every day and it is something new that I am learning, and I really do appreciate, and I think you will as a student as well, when you see the decisions that have been made and how, again, supportive and thoughtful they are for everyone involved.
And I think you should know too that all those discussions were had with teachers. So all week we've been having Zoom calls with focus groups of teachers. I believe there's somewhere between 40 and 50 teachers that were involved in those conversations, getting their thoughts on a variety of scenarios and what that might mean. We had college and career counselors in on those conversations who have been in contact with colleges to see what the implications would be. So we thought of all of those things. We thought about, what about if a family gets sick and can't keep going? What do we do? Is this going to hurt them? We thought about what about our kids who are really trying to boost their GPAs for college and scholarships. We thought about, what about kids who have extenuating family circumstances that they can't get to their schoolwork every day because they're helping out. So we feel like we have a plan that addresses all of those things and gets everybody in the right in the end.
And you said that that decision will be announced tomorrow, April 3rd?
Yes, we are putting the final touches on that this afternoon. We're going to share it with teachers tomorrow. We thought it was going to be about 10, but it looks like it's going to be about noon because we want to have one final group we want to put it out to. And then around 4 or 5 o'clock, we'll send it out district-wide to parents.
Gotcha. So Mr. Baylog, you are having contact with your students probably almost every day, whether it be those Zoom meetings or those individual meetings. How would you say students are holding up with this ALP and just their personal lives? You're touching it with them. What is that like?
Yeah, that's one of the hard, we're so used to, as teachers and administration and our counselors and everybody, that one-on-one contact, that casual conversation. And you realize as a teacher how important that is when you're there, but now you really cherish it when you don't have the ability to, when you're walking into the door of a classroom and just say, hey, how you doing, and get that interaction. I think it's harder to gauge how everybody's doing right now as we're doing the online stuff, because of the Zoom can just be, it's just new for all of us and has its kind of awkward moments, and I've done a lot of reaching out to kids one-on-one to try and check in, especially kids that I knew were at risk for us, or have maybe even beyond all the things that we're dealing with, some extra things in their lives right now. I know my colleagues are doing the same thing. That's the biggest thing for us right now. I mean, curriculum, it's important, but everybody's well-being is most important, because if everybody's not in a good place, then the curriculum doesn't mean anything in the first place. So we're doing a lot of different things, whether it's the one-on-ones with emails or the Zoom calls. And I've just tried to make Zoom calls as relaxed and as classroom-like as we can, because we like to joke around and have a good time in our music classes while still getting things done. But that community is such an important part of I think what we're all missing right now. And while we can't replicate it the same way, we're trying to find many, many different ways. And honestly, it's, as Dr. Calcaterra said earlier, we learn something new every day in this new teaching norm for us for the time being. And I'm finding new ways to reach out every day, as I know my colleagues are, and learning what's working and what's not. And I've been very upfront with the kids about it too, that, hey, if something's not working, please tell us. If the workload we're giving isn't appropriate for what you're trying to get done, please tell us. This is a team effort, all of us together trying to do this. We're supporting one another. None of us have ever done this before. So lots of different stuff.
Alrighty, and Dr. Calcaterra, I know you put out a inspirational video on Instagram talking to students while you took your walk. What would you say to students, to Lancers who might be concerned or worried during this completely unprecedented time right now?
I would say that if we have kids that are worried or concerned, to remember that we are still here and that we will interact with them in any way that we can, while of course following all health guidelines. And so whether it's somebody that needs a phone call, a FaceTime or Zoom call like this, or some other means, I would want kids to know that we're still here. Like, we haven't gone away, we are still accessible. And then the other thing that I've had conversations with kids about is, I know there was a lot of disappointment about things that have been canceled. I know Special Olympics being one of them. And we had a really strong leadership team made up of students that were hosting that. And one of the messages, I sent a message to that group specifically. I said, don't forget that you guys are leaders. And yes, you were, well on your way to putting on a beautiful event that was already, they finished planning. I said, but dig into your leadership skills and use those in a different way. I said, reach out to your friends, your peer groups, kids in your grades and the younger grades, and find out who needs our help, or find out just how people are doing. And so don't ever forget that you're a leader. And I now just ask that you use your leadership skills in a different way. So I think that that's just a message that I would want kids to know, is we're here, and we will help you in any way, whether it's a teacher, a counselor, a principal. We're all just, our hearts are breaking that we can't be in person with you, and we're not giving up. And we would still want you to have the same great service that you would get if we were together live.
Alrighty, thank you guys so much for joining me.